We have a special treat today. This is very similar to one I've had and I mistakenly let go out of my hands, but is in a friend's hands. It's very rare, early clock. This is made by CEI or Caringella Electronics. It is a Numitron tube clock. Now, it was originally offered as a do-it-yourself kit, and then they had offered it pre-assembled as well. This particular clock design, the do-it-yourself kit, came out before Heathkit's first, if you remember that one, Heathkit GC-1005. This one predated that, hit the market 1 year before Heathkit did. Now we're talking digital clocks. This is one of the earliest ones that could be in the hands of the consumer, the average consumer, that is. There were some industrial ones coming out maybe a few years earlier than this, but we're talking 1972-3 time frame. So for the average person to get their hands on a digital clock and be able to put it together, that was very new at that time frame. So this one here uses the Numitron tubes, as I said. This is one of the only kits, I believe, back then that ever used Numitron tubes. There were some early Nixie kits. So it's kind of a nice little unit here to be showing off. CEI, Caringella Electronics. What does the I stand for? Good question. Incorporated, I guess. 6-digit desk clock, model DDC-1. Okay. Now there was also an MDC-1. Looked the same. It had slightly different circuitry. It had battery backup with an internal oscillator. This one uses the line frequency for a time base. So that's the difference there. We have our typical MM5314 as a driving circuit. So you have your hold, run switch, slow, fast set. Unique electrical connection here, and this comes from a wall transformer that the output is 11 3/4 volts AC and about 5/8 of an amp. Behind these connectors here, 12 volts AC is listed. I would imagine that this thing runs on the lower side of most power adapters putting out 12 volts AC. In fact, let's give that a check. Sometimes these things, transformers of a more stout nature, run a little hotter, if you will. Okay, so this one's loaded and running 12.5 volts. I typically like to run 9-volt old transformers on a lot of these clocks, but this one has a soft driving transformer made by CEI or labeled by CEI, so it seems to work pretty good. The tubes aren't overdriven, and you do have a bright and dim switch to be able to cut them back. So that's on the bright setting, that's a dim setting. Now this is smoke plexiglass. The other one I mentioned that I had same model, had clear plexiglass. So I take it there was probably an option available at the time of ordering. And again, this would be something ordered. I think Radio Electronics was one of the first sources where you can get this. I will link some articles on build your own clocks and that sort of stuff related to the Caringella Electronics kits, and there were a few others as well as the ones I've already mentioned. So you can read up on that stuff. We're going to do a little walk of the inside. Now what I had done is already took the liberty of taking this apart. This filter slides in from the side with one of the ends removed. I wanted to simplify that for the sake of the video. I'm going to turn these down to lower setting, and I'll just show off the beautiful Numitron tubes. They have the DR-2000, which are the larger ones, and the DR-2100s, which are the smaller ones. This particular clock has them all in sockets, which is nice. The last one I had, the two smaller ones were soldered in for some reason. This one's a little different. This MM5314 also is dated 1973. The other one I had a 1972 date coded one in there, and the difference I've also noticed 1972 MM5314s have gold pins, and looks like 1973 is the first year where they got away from the gold pins. And that's about all I have to say on that. Always a necessary evil. It tested fine, but I did go ahead and put a new filter capacitor in there, as this thing will sit around. I probably will not run this all the time, as I have another Numitron clock or two that do run all the time. This one I would like to preserve. So with a new modern capacitor in there, when you plug it in some years down the road, it'll still be working. Hopefully, that's the thought anyway. 4 rubber feet, walnut sides supposedly as advertised. Upland, California, originally were Caringella, yeah, here we go, Incorporated. That was their hometown. And if you watch Dr. Pimple Popper, I think her office is in Upland, California. That's this day and age anyway. Caringella Electronics is long gone, so I'm sure they're not neighbors. Alright, so this is the clock. There's quite a bit of history on Charles Caringella and his associate Michael S. Robbins, and we're going to finish up the video with me reading a little email I got from Charles, who likes to be called Chuck. I had him reach out to me. It started from a YouTube video on a Caringella clock, and we exchanged emails a few times in 2020. And I hope with everything going on with COVID we didn't lose him. I've not been able to establish contact with him since, but I will give a quick read of a little bit of history he wrote to me in an email off to the side, so I'll do my best to read this to you. Dear Jim, thank you so much for responding to my email. Very difficult to post long comments on YouTube, and using email is much easier. I am known as Chuck to everyone, and I would be pleased if you call me Chuck. First of all, I want to talk to you about Michael S. Robbins. Now, that was his associate. Mike and I were friends and associates, as he says. He was the, let's see, where am I? He was the first electronics genius behind the clock circuitry. I designed the circuit boards and the clock cabinets, drew all the kit, step-by-step drawings, wrote the assembly instructions, and marketed the finished products through CEI. As a side note, I'm sad to say that Michael passed away 8 years ago. Now, this was in 2020, so 8 years prior, 2012, I guess he's talking. More about the clocks. The National Semiconductor MM5314 clock chip brought the digital clock to the masses. Mike and I were proud that we were the first to bring out a digital clock kit. We beat Heathkit and all the others by about a year. Regis McKenna, who was the marketing manager for National Semiconductor at the time, supplied us with some of the first chips. As a result of our efforts, Mike and I were invited to exhibit our clocks at one of the National Semiconductor's annual stockholders meetings in Silicon Valley. The clocks were first introduced as a do-it-yourself construction project to the readers of Radio Electronics magazine, and if they wanted, could order the complete kit from CEI, Caringella Electronics Incorporated. So that was that's a piece of history. We hopefully can log in here on. This is what I like to do on my channel here. This is good stuff. Gold, Jerry, as that guy, what's the comedian on Seinfeld said? Kenny Banya? Gold, Jerry. The digital wall clock model DWC-1, which I also have a copy of in one of my videos. You can refer to it. Big LED formed large digits about 3 inches tall. Anyway, the digital wall clock model DWC-1 also had some interesting uses. Even though it was not manufactured to military specs, it was purchased by the U.S. government and used in underground missile silos for timekeeping, because the mechanical clocks they used were beginning to fail and they could not buy replacement parts. Hollywood prop departments also purchased the wall clock as they found their way into several movies. And then he goes on to talk about his audio compressor, the ACP-1, because he was a ham radio enthusiast, so that was his main passion. So he had some other products in that lineup. But very interesting stuff. I was glad to get that email from him back in 2020. I hope he's still around. Chuck, if you're hearing this, thank you for that information. And I'm glad to share it with everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll have more. Hopefully I can provide you with more important information such as this. Enjoy your day. Thanks for watching.